On Monday evening, President Trump hosted congressional leaders from both parties for a reception at the White House. Democratic leaders have been critical of Mr. Trump's agenda, but lawmakers described the reception as friendly. The president also huddled with Republican leadership later in the evening to discuss plans to repeal the Affordable Care Act. For more on Mr. Trump's first days in office, let's bring in Lanhee Chen in our Washington bureau. He was policy director for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign, and he's a fellow at the Hoover Institution. Lanhee, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you, Elaine.
So let me start by asking you on what he billed as his first full day of work. Mr. Trump met with business leaders and then with union leaders, but he also signed a federal workforce hiring freeze, angering many union chiefs. What should we take away from his first full day?
I think there's a couple of things we can take away. The first is that he's really trying to build a new kind of political coalition. His very first major policy act was really to go after the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a major salvo in free trade, really by going against that, trying to curry favor with those who might be union members. And then on the other hand, he's trying to create this division perhaps between public sector unions and private sector unions, obviously trying to get on the good side of private sector unions while eschewing public sector unions. And this is all part of building, as I said, a new political coalition. We'll see if it works, but so far at least the politics are quite intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you on executive action. Republicans blasted President Obama for his use of executive action. Mr. Trump's party is both houses of Congress. So what does it tell you that he's using this executive authority?
A lot of irony here, actually, Elaine, because what President Trump is trying to do, particularly on the Affordable Care Act, is to use executive action to tear down the law in the same way that President Obama, former President Obama, used executive action to implement the law. And for Republicans, traditionally, the use of broad executive authority in this way really has been anathema to conservative values. So we'll have to see if President Trump actually moves forward with what was potentially a very sweeping executive action on the Affordable Care Act.
So, Lanhee, you just mentioned conservative values. Let's put up the New York Times headline from the weekend, quote, "Inaugural speech dims GOP hopes for a more conservative Trump agenda," end quote. Now, given the speech and his first actions in the White House, what do you think regarding conservatives here? Should they be concerned?
I think it's a little bit of a mixed picture. On the one hand, I think conservatives are pleased by the aggressive action on Obamacare. They're pleased by the federal workforce freeze he signed today. They're pleased by the freeze on additional regulation, and they're probably pleased by the extension of the Mexico City policy banning the use of U.S. funds to organizations that would use abortion or use abortion as a technique for family planning abroad. However, you've also got infrastructure, you've got an anti-free trade posture, you've got an American foreign policy that seems to be more inward-looking. These are things that might trouble Republicans. But again, Donald Trump is not your conventional Republican, so I don't think he minds a little bit of ambiguity.
All right. Well, lay out the fault lines, if you could, for us, Lanhee, that we could see between Republican majority in Congress and President Trump.
The first major battle is really going to be over free trade. And here you saw President Trump move aggressively to pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He was rebuked in some ways by Senator John McCain. John Cornyn of Texas also expressed some concern about a position that's more anti-free trade. So I would certainly expect to see some fault lines developing there. And then the next question is going to be on issues of fiscal conservatism. If Trump is going to push a larger infrastructure package that is not fully funded, I think some Republicans are going to say we can't get on board with that because it goes against our fiscal conservative beliefs and fiscally conservative values. So those are two areas where I would look right away for potential conflict between congressional Republicans and the new president.
Yeah, spending is always an issue for some. All right, well, we've learned, Lanhee, that Mr. Trump told congressional leaders Monday that illegal ballots cost him the popular vote. What do you make of Mr. Trump's relitigating those numbers?
I think part of this is just him trying to reinforce the thematic that it's him against the world. I think that there's some advantage that he sees and that his administration sees to continuing that dialogue. I'm not sure in the long run that's a winning strategy, but for now at least it appears as though they believe they can get mileage out of the conflict between the establishment and the outsider, and also between those who would try to wrong him and potentially try to disrupt his presidency as it gets started.
All right, we'll see what happens as a result of that strategy. Lanhee Chen, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.